So, how do you handle large projects? Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Creative Exploration series. Today, I wanted to talk about an essential part of handling really large projects, and that's breaking things down into smaller and more manageable pieces. I feel that this is one of the most important skills that you can have when you have a lot on your plate or you have a big deadline coming up, or if your project's just really overwhelmingly large, like you just have to start working on it and start breaking it down. And aside from just allowing you to stay organized, breaking things down like this can really give you constant direction on what you should be working on next, which is one of the most valuable things that you can have when time is short. Like, you always know what you need to do now and what you need to do next. So the concept of this is actually really simple. It's you just take a big project and you break it down into little projects. And that way, when you finish all of the little projects, you can just kind of piece it all together at the end and you're all set to go. But obviously things usually get complicated pretty quickly when you're doing this. Mainly it's figuring out the best way to break things apart. And really that's why learning to compartmentalize is important. I talked about this a little bit in the mindfulness video. I talked about programming and taking a very broad look at things from a high level. And that helps you understand how the systems within your project work. And once you can figure out all of these systems, it will help you break down a large project into a lot smaller sections, because once you understand those systems, you can figure out which ones are a little bit more independent than the other ones. Like for example, take a website. Often the front end, the visual front end of a website doesn't really care what the technical back end is doing, like the database and all the queries that are bouncing back and forth between the server. So it's a pretty easy choice to work on the graphic design completely independent from the programming. Now, obviously, you don't want to completely separate these. You want to keep aware of what might link between the two and keep that open. But for the most part, you're able to take that one thing and work on it, and when you're done, you can work on the other thing. And when you're done with that, then you can kind of smush them together, and you can work to make them work in tandem. The other thing that's really important when breaking apart your projects, and it's really important to me anyway, and I think it's important to a lot of people, it's to write everything down very clearly and have it organized in basically a to-do list. This will not only help make sure that you don't miss anything during the process of creation, but it will also give you a very strong direction on what you should be working on next. And for me personally, this is a huge lifesaver when I'm working on music, because on larger projects, I know that I need to do this song first in this style, which is roughly this length, and it takes a whole lot of guesswork out of the process. Now, some people might say that that's not creative anymore, you're just following a list, but I've often found that when I am limited like that, I have a lot more creative energy. And I think I've talked about this before as well, where if you have no limitations, it's actually a lot harder to work in a creative environment. And that might just be me personally, but and another good example of compartmentalization is how I make these videos. Initially I have a long list of topics that I think are interesting. I have those written down. So I choose one of those, and then I sit down and I write a script. And after that, I do this recording. And then I work on processing and recording and cutting out all the mistakes that I've made during it. And finally, while the video renders, I create a thumbnail for it. I create a description on YouTube, all that other stuff. And this might seem like a really linear process, but I compartmentalize each step. I break down each step to make sure that everything I'm doing in that step is 100% complete before I move on to the next one. That way I don't have to back up and redo something, and that kind of breaks my flow in what I'm doing now because I have to completely change programs or whatever. And it's just a huge waste of time and effort, and understanding, you know, what you can do step by step really helps streamline the entire process of creation. So it really helps me out in that way. So do you have any like tips or tricks for breaking down projects, or is there any kind of software that helps organize things? Just let me know in the comments. I'd honestly really like to hear more about this because I don't do a ton of this, but when I do it, it's always really helpful. So I'd really like to hear your thoughts on that. So thank you so much for watching this. If you did find this video useful, consider liking and subscribing because it really helps get the word out there, and that means a ton to me right now. I do have a Patreon account which creates royalty-free music every week for any creative project. And so if you need any music for any projects that you're working on, check out the link below for more information on that. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Be remarkable.